People who married their better-than-nothing option. How's your marriage going? Story 1, a coworker got married to their better-than-nothing person 6 or 7 years ago. It was one of those things where both people settled since they were getting older, and I guess they figured they'd give it a shot. They went from single to married in 8 months. Apparently as time went on, it only got better for them. They both started actively trying to better themselves, seeing therapists, picking up healthy solo hobbies, etc., and learned how to best communicate with each other over that time. They're both in their early 50s now, and they act like a happy younger couple whenever we're at work events. It's kinda cool to see. Story 2, we were married for 10 years, got 2 kids out of it, and some of the happiest years of my life. We both pretty much settled for each other. Eventually, we both concluded that we just weren't right for each other and cut it off, but I don't have any regrets about it. Without her, I definitely would have been someone who was forever alone. I definitely would agree with the better to have loved and lost saying. Story 3, I married someone I considered kind of a settle at first. I hadn't had a relationship in over a year and met a woman at a bar and thought, she's pretty enough and I like being around her. The thing is, we grew together, and I have a very successful and happy marriage despite her not initially knocking my socks off. At no point in our relationship was it so bad I didn't want to be in the relationship anymore. Story 4, so my marriage is not better than nothing, but I was also never obsessed with my wife the way I have been obsessed with a new person before. Part of the reason I was willing to marry her was because we communicated well, worked with each other to improve each other's lives, and we generally enjoy many of the same things while still retaining who we are individually. The biggest thing is that we both felt physically and emotionally safe with each other. I am now obsessed. I love my wife more than I have ever loved anyone. Story 5, I think I am the better-than-nothing spouse. About a month ago, I found out. It was devastating. For 17 years she settled for me despite not truly loving me. Life was hard, but we had each other, or so I thought. The moment we talked about how bad things got, she asked for a divorce, and I lost my best friend and the sole person who I felt I trusted enough to talk to. I move out tomorrow to rebuild my life. Story 6, I married my better-than-nothing option in my 30s. We both understood what we had waited for, and committed ourselves fully to the marriage. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I had married my preferred option, and I realize that the love I feel from the person I married is so much better than the preferred option would have been. I could never convince the preferred option to date me, whereas the woman I'm married to now found me easy to love. In other words, my romantic self is an idiot, and my better-than-nothing was actually better than everything. Story 7, I have a friend who is in this situation, and he was advised not to. His wife too. It's like watching the movie The War of the Roses, but in live version. It's so exciting. You never know how the next fight will start and how they will try to blame it on each other. They stay together because of the kids. Story 8, my husband and I got together as single parents. When you do that, you're choosing as much for the kids as you are for you. You actually don't know what kind of couple you are on your own. And when the kids grew up, after over a decade together, we had to figure that out for the first time. It started out good for maybe the first 4 to 5 years, then went really rocky in the kids' teens. Turns out as they needed us less, and we really didn't have enough common ground in a lot of ways. In particular, I had emotional labor needs that weren't being met. We discussed divorce several times, but at our peak crisis point, we decided to work on it because one of our kids had just had a bereavement, death of the other parent. And honestly, it still wasn't working that well and maybe still would have ended in divorce, but then I had a terrible work situation that lasted a year, and he really stepped up. That was the turning point. I was able to let go of my resentments about all the times I'd carried us, because at some point he'd done enough that I didn't feel baited and switched anymore. Then the kids grew up, and we had to learn to be a couple on our own together. That took time, but we'd sort of grown and changed into a better match by then. We're really solid now, and have been for probably the last 5 years or so. But it's been a team endeavor to get it that way and keep it there. It's not something that just happens. Story 9, I pursued a woman relentlessly in my younger, much more insecure years. She eventually married me, but I remember her using a line like, "You've been here for me through everything, guess you're the best I can hope for." I was too inexperienced at the time to know any better, and thought I was doing what a man should do to prove his commitment to a woman. We had good years and bad, but everything in that relationship felt uphill. What she needed from me did not come naturally to me, and what I needed from her did not come naturally to her. We hadn't paid attention to these things during the excitement of dating, but it was painfully obvious even 2 years into our marriage. We were married for 8 years total, having known each other 3 years prior. After the newness wore off, she often had the attitude that I was there to serve her since she lowered herself for me. It was part of her own insecurity, and we worked through a lot of these early marriage hurdles through marriage counseling. In the end, however, she wanted me to do all the changing. She tried to change a little, but didn't like it. A friend of the family saw the opportunity and started telling her everything she wanted to hear. They had an affair, we split, she spent about 7 months figuring out what a fraud he was, we got back together briefly, and eventually mutually decided divorce would be best for everyone. We've been divorced for 22 years now. We may have squeaked by together, but I don't know if we were ever truly happy. Story 10, my parents got married because they were considered old in their church, they were 26 and 24, and they both wanted kids. My mom told me that it was the practical thing to do. Luckily they hit it off, and though it took a lot of time and work, they are annoyingly in love and have been married for 42 years next month. Story 11, I've come to believe that the majority of marriages are out of settling. My first marriage was a crap show, but I was naive and dumb and pressured into it. We had passion but zero compatibility. I left and was single for a long time until I met my now husband. During that time, I worked with a happy couple and saw what it was supposed to be like. I looked for different things and told myself I wouldn't continue dating someone if it wasn't the way I felt it should be. My marriage now is a completely different thing, easy, happy, relaxed. In 5 years we've never had a fight. We've had small disagreements, but they're squashed quickly. We just like each other and respect each other. If you asked me to name a negative thing about him, I'd be pressed. I feel like I wasn't truly compatible with anyone I dated in the past, or maybe I just wasn't ready to seek the right things. Story 12, when I was in high school, I dated whoever showed interest in me and was moderately attractive. I'm not unattractive myself, but I was never particularly outgoing and never put myself out there. I was in love with a childhood friend of mine at the time, I took her to prom and everything. It was horribly awkward and very apparent that she wasn't into me in the same way. One day, I met someone else randomly who had actually been in the same prom group as us, and went with one of my friends. We just instantly clicked, and I almost asked her for her number, but I was still hung up on my childhood friend. Anyway, a couple months later, she friended me on Facebook and sent me her number. I figured nothing else was working out for me at the moment, so why not, and asked her on a date. We've been together for 10 years now, married for 2. Thank you for watching. If you like this kind of content, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. We'll see you on the next one.